Okay, all set?
Yep.
Okay. Let me move those last two to the end.
So now you're live.
Okay. Okay, great.
You want to reconnect?
Yep.
Testing one more time.
Okay. Just double check. Okay. Sorry for the delay and welcome everybody to CS 5360 Math 4100 Introduction to Data Science. Hopefully everybody is in the right room. Yes. So I will be one of your instructors this semester. I'm Anna Little and my co-instructor Bei Wang is also up here. Today we're just going to do a little bit of an introduction to data science to motivate what we're going to be doing throughout the semester. So talk about what is data science, why do we care, and then we'll go over the course logistics in more detail, how it's going to be organized, what the focus is going to be, and of course, feel free to ask any questions that you have as we go along. So this is kind of a fun little graphic to get us started. This is your machine learning system. Yep, you pour in the data into this big pile of linear algebra, then collect the answers out on the other side. What if?
Sorry, you need to share your screens through the Zoom. People in the Zoom cannot see the screen.
Oh. I had done that and then we stopped it. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, sorry for my Zoom people. Can everybody see the screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. It's always, yeah, a little bit challenging. Yeah, let me move this thing over. How do I get rid of this thing, maybe?
You can click on the second one so that you can see yourself.
There we go.
Or you can minimize it if you want to.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, and then we just stir the pile until the answers look right. So sometimes data science can feel a little bit like this. Sometimes it's hard to understand exactly why some of the state-of-the-art tools work as well as they do. But there are definitely a lot of things that we understand and a lot of progress that's being made. Okay, so as you probably know from the Canvas site, we're going to offer the course in a hybrid format. So we will meet in person in this room, but we will also live stream everything in Zoom. And that will be live streamed to a YouTube channel so that it'll be recorded so you can watch it again later if you like. So we do not require that you be here in person. You are welcome to attend via Zoom. But we do need you to attend in real time because we will be doing some activities, some in-class activities. And when we do those, for those of you who are here, we'll have you get in little groups. And for those of you who are online, we'll do breakout rooms online for you to work with people. So anyway, so just attend in real time in whichever format you choose. Okay, and I think you're probably all very aware of this, that everybody has been shouting this at you for the last couple of days, but we are currently under a mask mandate in Salt Lake County, and this is in effect through February 7th. We're required to wear well-fitting respirators, such as an N95, KN95, et cetera, or a cloth mask if you don't have access to one. So just keep that in mind. Let's try to do everything we can to keep each other safe. Okay, so some of the course logistics, and Bei is going to go into more details on this later. But just to give you a heads up, if you go on Canvas, there's a module, important online links. And under that module, you'll see links to the Zoom session for the lectures. And that same Zoom link is going to work for all of the office hours, which are online. There will be different, some people are going to offer their office hours online and some might not. But for those that are online, it'll all be the same Zoom link. And the link to the YouTube channel is also there. And we'll use Piazza for course discussions and Q&A. So do please sign up for that. That was in the announcement to get signed up for Piazza. Okay, and so Canvas will mainly use, for grading and for assignments. So we'll collect assignments and grade assignments on Canvas, but really most of the course information in terms of the syllabus, the schedule, is all on the course webpage, which Faye will discuss in a little bit. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and then like I mentioned, we will be recording all of these lectures. So they're live streamed to YouTube, and then you can go back and watch them later. So just be aware that your voice and your video may be visible when you participate in the discussion. And so if that's a problem, if you don't want that to be publicly visible in Zoom, you can write written questions. So anyway, hopefully that's okay with everyone. Just be aware that these are being recorded and posted. Now, this does not apply to the breakout rooms. So when we do breakout rooms, that's not recorded. Okay. And if you have any concerns with the way things are done or being recorded, anything along those lines, just get in touch with us and we can discuss. Okay, so for those of you on Zoom, we do encourage you to keep your cameras on if possible. The pandemic has been very isolating and sometimes, you're sort of missing that human contact. So if we can keep our cameras on, we can at least have a little bit of a sense of getting to know each other and working together as people, not mandatory, but a suggestion that it is kind of nice. Okay, so transitioning a little bit into the motivation for this course, what is data science? Well, according to the Harvard Business Review, it's the sexiest job of the century. So good for you that you chose to take this course. And according to Twitter, well, Twitter has a lot of different interpretations of what it means to be a data scientist. A couple of them are on the slide. A data scientist is a statistician who lives in San Francisco. Data science is statistics on a Mac. You have to have a Mac if you're going to do data science. I'm just kidding. A data scientist is someone who is better at statistics than any software engineer and better at software engineering than any statistician. Of course, that last one is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but actually kind of gets at an important aspect of data science in that it is very broad and it encompasses a very broad range of skills. And so it can be quite challenging to be an expert at everything that goes into data science. But we're hoping to equip you in this class with some of the, with the basics across the board. Okay, now these data science skills are highly desirable, and you'll see that reflected in data science salaries. So as you can see, data science continues to be a very lucrative area with lots of jobs and high salaries. So definitely a good thing to be studying, even just getting the skills in your degree. Okay, so what is data science? Again, I said it's very broad and it encompasses a lot of different skills. So here are a bunch of different words that might come to mind when we think about data science: complex, large, the world, a variety. And so what we're really getting at here in data science is learning from data. There's a bunch of different components, but at the heart of data science is really, we want to learn from data. Okay, and here are kind of the three pillars that we need to do that effectively. So to learn from data, what do we need? We need math and statistics knowledge. So I like the green one because I'm from the math department. But that's not enough. We also need hacking skills, or I don't know, maybe more eloquently, computational skills. And then we also need domain expertise. So of course, it's really important, say if you're working with RNA data, if you don't know anything about where that data came from, how it was collected, what are the issues specific to that application, it will be difficult to do effective data analysis. And when you put all three of these together, you get data science. And you can kind of see here the intersection of any two without the third. CS and math, you get machine learning, domain expertise, and math and statistics, you get traditional research. And then when you combine hacking skills with domain expertise, that's where you really get in trouble when you don't know the math. Okay. So according to Wikipedia, data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from many structural and unstructured data. That's kind of a long sentence. But this graphic is kind of a nice illustration of what you can think of as the data science life cycle or the data science process. So we have the world and it generates data, all kinds of data. This data is collected, this data is processed, this data is cleaned. And then this leads to data analysis and also different models to model the world and the data that it generates. So far, this is all kind of like a forward going process, right? The world generates data, we clean it, we analyze it, we make models, but it feeds back into itself because the analysis and the models that we make coming out of data science, they impact products that are built, they impact policies that are made, and those things go back and impact the world and then impact, the new data that's collected in the future. So this whole thing kind of goes in a cycle. Okay, so data science closes the circle from collecting real world data to processing and analyzing it to influence the real world again. And so you may think that this sounds a lot like statistics. Isn't statistics what we mean by learning from data? And you may be wondering, well, what's the difference between data science and statistics? So take a look at this article by David Donahoe on 50 years of data science. There's some really interesting comments and insights there about how data science is similar and different from statistics. But one of the main punchlines is that in statistics, the sort of classic approach is to have a really high emphasis on inference. So we're trying to make inferences from data, learn certain population parameters, et cetera. And in data science, we have a much higher emphasis on prediction. So we want to take the data. I mean, that's important in statistics too, but the emphasis is a little bit different in data science. We care a lot about prediction. Okay. Okay, so data science is the ability to take data, to be able to understand it, to process it, to extract value from it, to visualize it, to communicate it. That's going to be a hugely important skill in the next decades because now we really do have essentially free and ubiquitous data. Okay, so touching on several of the elements in the data science process. And one thing that I think is really important here is the extracting value from data. Okay, so why do we care? Why do we care about data science? Well, for one thing, data is everywhere and it's hard to escape. So take biology these days. It's more and more data-centered and computational. Physics, it's data-centered and computational. Medicine, social sciences, businesses, all of these completely distinct disciplines are being more informed by data, I guess I would say, as they develop the ability to collect more and more data. Okay, and then another reason that you might care is jobs. So CS enrollments are really exploding these days with a growing number both of majors and non-majors. And there is a big increase in employers looking for people with data science skills. Now, according to, let's see, what is it? It's the Rebooting Jobs Report. Most of these job postings aren't requiring a CS degree. Only 18% were requiring a CS degree, but they were all looking for people with data science skills. So there's definitely a market for people who are competent with data who are not computer scientists. Okay, so we are in the era of big data. And just to kind of give you an idea about the magnitude of the data that's out there to be analyzed, in 2010, there were, 1,200 exabytes of data. This is an estimate, sure, of largely unstructured data. An exabyte is 1 billion gigabytes. So that's a lot of data. And Google stores about 10 exabytes of data, whereas the hard disk industry ships about 8 exabytes per year. And you can just see, even from going on the internet and Googling YouTube cat videos, in half a second, you see 600 million results appearing. I mean, that's really mind-boggling when you think about it, right? In half a second, 600 billion search results. So there's an enormous amount of data that's being stored and processed. Okay, so how can we leverage data? Well, we can leverage data in many different ways. I mean, almost in any way. Fitness, right? You can improve your fitness by targeted training. You can improve your product. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the course, how companies, do tests and they collect data about what's, how they should market things, how to target your audience. Also making better decisions. So not just for selling things, but making better medical decisions, better diagnoses, choosing the right medication, and things in your personal life, like picking a good restaurant or hotel. And also prediction. As I mentioned, prediction is really huge in data science. So we want the ability to predict based on our data, what's going to happen in the future, make predictions about elections, events, etc. Okay. And so this is just a little example about how all of this publicly available data really does play a big role in our lives. So I just moved to Salt Lake about a year ago. And when you move somewhere new, like you don't know anything, you don't know the city, you don't know the neighborhoods, you don't know the schools, and you rely so much on the data that's online. So we were buying a house and of course, checking Zillow very religiously and relying on all of our maps, etc., to get around. Okay, and big data is really exploding in science and engineering, and it's kind of transforming the way that we approach science and engineering. So now people have access to cheap sensors that have really changed the way that science and engineering is done. So here are some examples: large physics experiments and observations, cheaper and automated genome sequencing, smart buildings, geophysical imaging. And so in this context of big data and science and engineering, it's kind of led to a controversy on how to approach how to analyze this data. The controversy is between focusing on hypotheses which explain very clearly what you observe in your data, and just developing data-driven methods which work, but we may not understand exactly why they work or how they're working. And this makes some people nervous, right? Not to understand what the generating mechanism is. Okay, and so another example of really big data out there is the CERN Large Hadron Collider data. So this is a particle accelerator that generates an enormous amount of data. So CERN has publicly released over 300 terabytes of data. And so how much is that? That is a lot. That's the equivalent of 20,000 Gmail accounts, or about 64,000 DVDs. Or if you were to stream all of that data on Pandora, it would take over 1,000 years to get through all of that data. So that's really mind-boggling when we think about the quantity of data that's stored. But it's still small compared to some of the data sources out there, such as the National Security Agency, which has probably over 300 terabytes of data. Sorry, let me just make sure I get this right. Yes, that they touch on 300 terabytes of data about every 15 minutes. Okay, so another example of big data transforming the sciences is genomics. One of the really neat data sources out there for genomics is called TCGA, or the Cancer Genome Atlas. And this contains 1 petabyte of data. That's 1 million gigabytes. I know all of these, like, I don't know, I find them hard to remember, but just bigger and bigger. And so as a single human genome takes up 100 gigabytes of storage space, and more genomes are sequenced, storage needs will grow from gigabytes to petabytes to exabytes. And by 2025, an estimated 40 exabytes of storage capacity will be required for human genomic data. So it's kind of hard to keep up with the scale at which we're doing things, because it just keeps growing so quickly. Okay, and so with all of this data that's generated, well, you have to have some place to store it. Actually, that's a real problem. Where do you store all this data? What do you store? What do you get rid of? One such center is the NSA Utah Data Center in Bluffdale, Utah, which has a very high storage capacity. We don't know exactly what it is, but NPR estimates that the center will be able to handle 5 zettabytes, or 5 billion terabytes of data. So this is close to home. Maybe you can go work there one day. Okay, so where can you find data? We've been saying, well, data is all around us, right? It's everywhere. But in this course, of course, you're going to actually do a data science project. So you're going to want to get your hands on like a specific data. But there's lots of data that's publicly available. You probably have access to a lot of the data that you might be interested in, maybe without realizing it. And if not, to get you started, we've put up sort of a list of data sources. So if you check out the course webpage, you can see links to a bunch of different data sources. That might be helpful if you're thinking about where to go for data. The UCI Machine Learning Repository has a lot of interesting and kind of benchmarking data sets, interesting data sources. There's stuff from the CDC. There's stuff from, let's see, climate data, lots, and census data, lots of different sources. Okay, so transitioning a little bit to the course goals. So what are we hoping to get out of this course? We're hoping to teach you the basic skills relevant in the data science process. So specifically, data wrangling. This can be frustrating if you're not used to it. This might not be the most fun. Well, maybe some of you will love it, but for some of you, it might not be the most fun part. But acquiring, cleaning, reshaping, sampling the data. And then secondly, data exploration analysis. That's where the statistics comes in, right? How do we analyze and make sense of the data? Prediction, we want to make inferences and decisions based on the data. And then a fourth thing that we'll be focusing on also is communication, how you communicate those results back to society. And so you'll get some practice with that in your projects too, because you'll not just analyze, but also communicate what you find. Okay, and here's kind of a list of topics that we're going to cover. On the course website, you'll see more detailed schedule of lectures, but we're going to do some basic programming in Python. We'll touch on version control. You'll get a little bit of exposure to that, data wrangling and data acquisition. And then we'll do some basic statistics, basic hypothesis testing and regression, data visualization. Bea is an expert at that, and so she's going to be doing a number of lectures on that. Classification in various different forms, and we'll talk about, logistic regression, KNN, SVM, decision trees. Some of my favorite topics are clustering and dimension reduction, so those related to my research, and a little bit in network analysis, and we'll do a little bit of deep learning at the end. I don't know if it made it on this list, but we're planning. And ethics. I shouldn't have put that last because it's not the least important topic. Should have put that first, but we'll talk a little bit about the ethics of data science. Okay, so, and we have 3 TAs helping us with this course. So we are very excited about that. We have Prasad.
Stand up.
Please stand up. Yes. Can the TAs stand up?
Okay, so there's 2 probably remote. Yeah, so he's here, and then on the screen, you'll see them.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. So yes, so we just want you to know who they are. Mingji, Hao Yu, and Prasanth, we're very happy to have their help and their support through this course. And they will also be holding office hours in addition to the instructors. Okay, and I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So like I said, I came here a year ago before coming to join the math department here as faculty. I was postdoc at Michigan State in the computational math, science and engineering department. And I got my PhD from Duke back in 2011, I believe, so a while ago now. But my research touches on basically the mathematics of data science. So clustering and dimension reduction are topics I'm very interested in. How do we take very high dimensional and often very noisy data sets and map them into some kind of low dimensional space in a way that we can visualize the structure, whether that's a group structure for clusters, or whether we're just trying to reduce the dimension and visualize, figure out, say, what even is the intrinsic dimension of our data, how many independent things are going on. And different algorithms often give very different pictures. And so it's important to really understand what these algorithms are doing, so you know when to pick what, and how different choices along the way affect your results. Okay, so like I said, one thing that I'm quite interested in is clustering, and this is something we'll talk about a bit in this course. And so clustering is a very interesting topic because it seems so simple. You have data points and you want to group them so that similar ones are together and different ones are apart. But it's really unclear what it means for 2 data points to be similar. For example, if you look at this picture on the left, the red points and the blue points, they seem very well separated. That seems like an easy clustering problem. And so you might think similarity here is basically just the Euclidean distance between them, and that makes sense. But if you look at, say, a data set like you see here on the right with the rings, you see this very kind of complicated geometric structure to these clusters. And if you try to cluster them based on just their distance apart, it won't work, right? Because we can have a point over here on the left side that's very far away to a point on the right side. And so it's actually surprisingly difficult to find algorithms that can handle both of these types of data sets. usually they'll fail for one or the other. Okay, and I'm also interested in graph-based methods. So taking, starting with the data set, build a graph on it, and then use that graph to do cool things. You may want to cluster the data, or you may want to use it for dimension reduction. And here it's, of course, very important to think about fast computations on graphs, making the graph sparse whenever possible. Okay, and then another area of interest is in signal processing. So I also work in an area called multi-reference alignment. Let me not go into a whole lot of details there, but just to say, in this area of signal processing, there's a hidden signal that you're trying to learn, but it's buried under a ton of noise. You can't observe it directly. Noise here can mean a lot of different things. It can mean it's shifted around. It can mean a lot of Gaussian white noise on top of it. It can mean it's, stretched or shrunk. So lots of different ways of thinking about it. But this is what we call an inverse problem, where what we want to learn, we can't see directly, but from a bunch of noisy data, we're trying to work backwards and learn the hidden thing. Okay, so Bei's going to come over and take over from here. Do you want to do a short break before you take over, Bei?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Why don't we do a 5-minute break? We're going to try to do 5-minute breaks in the middle, and we'll come back at 4:20.
Just a standard one, and that's what we did last year. So it's basically, I think it's 93 and above.
Yeah. It still says live.
Yeah, I think we might want to do a little bit test.
Yeah.
Either tonight or either tonight. Or just try it one more time.
Yeah, for sure. Although I kind of want to try it one more time in this room, just because, like,
Well, how about
I don't know that it would matter, but yeah. I think
Right, how about we stop streaming and we'll do another try?
Yeah. So you want to check? It says
It still
it
says live
says
streaming.
live, but it could be
Perfect.
like frozen or something. It does seem like since you.
Did you log out? Yeah, I was going to show a little bit over what is on because I think for people who are users, it's fine, otherwise it will take a little bit of time. That's why I want to show that. Oh, actually, which house is this? Maybe have to keep up.
I don't have those. We can open it. Yeah. Okay, so just, I think I may have messed up your order here, but
That's fine. You can
first one
just,
Canvas,
you can just,
second one
you can just
website.
add another tab.
and then the link to the GitHub should be.
Oh, here, I was going to open a new tab for it. Perfect.
Take this back to the. Okay, there you go.
Sounds good. So let's get back to the slides.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a breakout room if we have time for students to.
Sure. I think that would be good. If there's time, let's do it so they can meet each other.
You can do it from your account, right? The breakout room.
Yeah, it should just be breakout rooms, and then you can set like how many people per room.
Did you do like 4 or 5?
Yeah, we did
Okay.
4.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so let's resume. I assume folks can hear me. Ooh. Could do this. Okay. So a little bit introduction for myself. I'm a professor at computer science. I'm also affiliated with the math department. I'm also part of Scientific Computing Image Institute. Same as Anna, actually, we overlap a little bit. I also did my PhD at Duke. So you're going to get plenty of Blue Devils if you ever watch college basketball. By the way, anyone has any UNC connection? UNC Chapel Hill connection? No? Good. Otherwise, I'll kick you out of this classroom. All right. So the research I do is in topological data analysis. By topology, I mean, to some degree, the shape of the data. I also do a lot of data visualization, applied computation topology, geometry, some machine learning, mostly on machine learning interpretability, data mining, and previously I worked on project related to bioinformatics and robotics. Just a quick example of some of those sort of how different part of my research come together. The main idea is I work on both algorithm research and applied research, and also I work a lot with domain scientists, both inside university and in national labs. So the idea is to combine topology, geometry, data analysis, and visualization to study larger complex data set that require rich structure descriptions. The type of data set I have worked with before are things like coming from nuclear simulation, material science, atmospheric sciences, brain, bioinformatics, and even marketing. So here's some pictures, because I also work on visualization. Here are some slightly fancier pictures, like eye candies for you, of the type of data that I work with. The first type are things like vector fields. So what is a vector field? You are at a location, you have a vector, meaning that it has a direction and a magnitude. So if you think about windstorm, that is a vector field. So it's talking about at a location where the direction of the wind and how strong that wind is. That's an example of vector field. Of course, it also arises many times from scientific simulations. For example, if you simulate combustion, you put a bunch of things that is explosive together, light it up. You can collect data that describe sort of the direction and strength of physical variables. A second type are something I call point cloud data. For example, one type of data I work with are coming from telescopes. So if you have, say, radio telescopes that is kind of collecting signal from a particular piece of sky, you're really looking at sort of the signal across multiple channels. And that can be modeled as, in some sense, what we call point cloud. But also you can think about sort of high energy physics, when you have multiple parameters in a physical simulation, the parameter settings can be described as a high dimensional point cloud as well. And finally, when you think about what are the example of a low dimensional point cloud, maybe 3-dimensional point cloud, those are the point cloud that is sampled from, say, material science. For example, somebody is looking at, I don't know, maybe metal, and then you can kind of run simulations to collect sort of how the metal form in terms of grain, and those can be described. For example, the upper left corner under point cloud, you see this kind of porous material that is actually a visualization of a battery. Of course, there's also interesting data that are coming from networks that I work with. For example, brain networks, which describe the functional and structural properties of brain, but also, of course, a lot of biological networks and social networks. And finally, this is probably the added complexity, which this class probably wouldn't address, are what I call ensembles. Essentially, when you actually collect data, for example, at a fixed domain, let's say I'm looking at simulation of windstorm in the Salt Lake Valley, you might do that simulation multiple times. So it's not just one single simulation, you run it multiple times. Each time the variable changes a little bit. So you get a collection of those data sets that is sometimes called ensemble data set, and that added an extra layer of complexity to your data. So in summary, complex data are things like vector field, point clouds, networks, and ensembles are some of the real world data set that hopefully some of those tools you learn from this class are able to be applied to. So this is just dive into a little bit. One thing I was very excited to work on some time ago is looking at the astronomy data set, where we try to kind of denoise the data set to highlight a particular black hole. That was very exciting because I'm a computer scientist. I'm always attracted by people who study the universe. In the past life, I wish I'm an astronomer instead. But one of the things that is amazing for being a computer scientist and in general being a data scientist is that if you have a particular passion for a particular subfield of science or engineering, being a data scientist gives you opportunities to interact with those data. Like I wanted to be a biologist when I was 18. And on the first day of undergrad, I realized the biology is really, really hard because the textbook is like a brick and I have to memorize 100 new words that is more than 20 letters long. So I switched major to computer science on day one. But I still like biology. So I work with biologists who has amazing data I can play with. Okay. All right, so the bottom picture, what I showed you is some examples of network visualization. I don't have a small video. Why this is not playing? Oh, this is a PDF or this is Keynote? It's PDF. Oh, sorry, there's no animations, but that's okay. So anyway, what I show on the right corner is actually a vortex visualization. When you think about a vortex, what is a very good example of a vortex? Or tornado. Okay, so when you think about a tornado, you actually see a vortex structure where if you throw something into the volcano, a tornado, it's going to like having this kind of swirling patterns. And then what you are seeing on the upper right corner is just a visualization of a very simple vortex. Okay. All right, enough about me and my research. If you are interested in undergrad research, let me know. But I want to go into logistics. And this is the meaty stuff here. So first of all, most of the course materials are part of this website. So put it in your bookmark. You're going to go there many times a week. And in there, we have basically talked about basic information under the home directory, syllabus, schedule, and then some description over the project and resources. And after the slides, I will show a little bit more into the website itself. Some communication. So we have multiple communication channels, and then they all serve a slightly different purpose. And Anna already described it. Let me just summarize. Canvas is where you're going to see announcements. So this is more of a one-way communication from the teaching staff to the students. So make sure you are getting notifications from Canvas, because usually the email goes to your UID address. So if you're not using that as a default, make sure you forward it to your Gmail, whatever account that you can actually see the sort of announcement from the faculty, right? So that's one-way communication from us to you. But it's also the portal where you're going to submit the homework. And then it's a portal where the TA is going to use to grade your homework and projects. Piazza is a better platform which is linked off Canvas, but we also provide the link to it. Please sign up with Piazza because that is a place where you can have two-way communications between you and the faculty and among yourselves for discussions. So if you go to Piazza, you're going to see multiple subfolders like homework 0, homework 1, homework 8, project, project proposal. So you can start a question or a conversation under separate folder, which is basically falls under different part of the course. Okay, so you can sign up over Piazza. The information is also accessible through Canvas. GitHub is where you're going to get the homeworks and lectures. There are instructions over there. When we update information, you can just do a git pull, and then that will you will obtain all the information to your home directory when you use GitHub. Zoom, of course, for people who are remote here, is where we're going to have the online lecture, and it's also streamed to YouTube. Technically, you could watch the lecture also through YouTube if your connection is weak. The only thing is that if you actually watch the lecture over YouTube side of things, you would not be able to interact directly with the teaching staff, okay? And office hours, currently majority of the office hours over Zoom. There's one office hour that you are hosting, which is Thursday in person and Zoom in one of those classrooms in MEB. So that information is also posted over Canvas. So important information, please use Piazza for questions related to course materials. You can post over private messages if you just want to ask this question to the teaching staff. But if you wanted to also get input from your fellow classmates, which is highly encouraged, you can post it as a public question, so everybody can answer it. And I often find that very helpful, especially if you post some questions, say at 11 p.m., maybe the TAs may not be available, but maybe some of your fellow classmates might still be awake. And if you have things you want to communicate directly with the teaching staff, you can do it in that is not related to the course material. So this is things like medical exemptions and so on and so forth. You can send a private message over Piazza as well. We will still be able to see and respond, but you can also send the instructor emails directly. But please reserve your question on technical details regarding course materials over Piazza, okay? Finally, please do not use Canvas message to communicate with the teaching staff. It's not a very ideal platform for many reasons. Okay. All right, so the courses has multiple components. There is lectures, which we are going to cover both theoretical side and coding side. Starting from next lecture, you're going to start actually bring your laptop to the class. I see some of you have already brought it. This lecture is not needed, but starting from next lecture, you will be actually writing code on your computer as we go along. So it's sort of a very hands-on class. So also, when we are giving some of those coding lectures, you will see us running the code on the screen, but you're doing it on your own laptop. But we also have, later on, I will describe a little bit group activities where you're going to put you into small groups in the classroom or breakout rooms where you're going to work as a group to write some code together, okay? And very much so, most of the code is over Jupyter Notebook. So homework 0, which is due, where you don't really need to submit it, but we would want you to complete homework 0 before the class on Thursday, because it's a very short thing. It wouldn't take you too much time. It's mostly to make sure your laptop has a proper software installed, especially Jupyter Notebook, so that when you come to the lecture 2, you can go straight to the coding part, okay? Homework, there's 2 types of assignments under Canvas. There's homework assignment. Homework 0, again, is just for you to install the software. It's not graded. It doesn't worth anything, but you should do that anyway. Homework 1 to homework 8. There's 8 homework assignment. They're roughly due. Most of them are due for the first part of the semester. And then there is the final project. So the final project consists of pretty much 50% of your grade. So you should take it seriously. And the final project has multiple components like proposal, milestone, and final project submission, okay? All right, this is a standard thing. Now we are in year 3 of the pandemic. Can you imagine it? Because it's called COVID-19 and it's 2022. I'm still kind of understanding this concept, but we are in COVID time, so get in touch with us. It's for the benefit of everybody. First of all, we are going to follow the standard COVID protocol set forth by the CDC and the university. But we all understand that learning during the pandemic is quite a stressful situation. If you need extensions and so on, please get in touch with us, okay? And also what we're going to do is we're going to drop the lowest score homework assignment. And then we'll try to give you some biological break during each lecture. And if I fail to do it, just remind me. So how you grade it? 45% goes towards your homework assignment. Remember, there's 8 of them. We drop 1. One of the major things for homework is to start early. So I can't emphasize enough. The homework usually break into small problems. So try to assign a few problems a day. Do not wait until the day of the due date. Most homeworks, actually, I think almost all homeworks, except for homework 0, are due on Friday at midnight. But of course, if you really want to have an amazing weekend, I would suggest you submit it earlier than midnight on Friday. And then the homework, we do have a late policy, right? If things happen, you couldn't submit on the day on Friday. You can get 2 days of delayed submission, but for every day you delayed submission, you lose 1, or you lose 1 point, which is 10% of your grade. So the total points is 10. So if you submit on a Sunday, you get 8. Is that a question? No. Okay. Final project is 50%. It consists of 2 milestones, proposal, and you need to form a team between 2 or 3 people. And then there is group activities, which I will talk about very soon. Okay, yes. So in some classes, we're going to have between 5 to 15 minutes mini activities in breakout rooms, also in here in small groups. And usually it's a coding problem. The typical scenario is where one person is going to be kind of sharing the screen, and then the small group is going to work together to try to solve the problems. And then the idea is you are going to submit these activities by 6 p.m. We can change that a little bit. Maybe we'll change it to 12. But the idea is you do those activities so that you get participation scoring. It's only 5%. So let's say there's 15, you can only need to submit 5 of those. Okay. Schedule. It's scheduled, you can access it through the course webpage. Most importantly, remember to bring your own computer. And if you see it's homework 0, it's about installing and making sure Python is running. And we use Python 3.9, so make sure it's the latest version. We don't have a required textbook, but we have some recommended ones in case you want to brush up on your coding skills. So the Python for data analysis and hands-on machine learning skill with Skikiller. The second book is much more applied to later part of the course, so that if you haven't used the Python library, it will be useful to consult to those references. Okay, so you can actually, so there's links. So both books should be free on campus, so you don't have to buy them. So some of those programming things you're going to see throughout this class include things like Python, of course, corresponding libraries, Skikiller, which is a machine learning library, and then TensorFlow, which is open source. All right, important questions. Since this is first class, is this course for me or for students here? We do have some prerequisite. We need you to have some level of programming experiences, whether it's in Python, C, C++, Java, etc. But you need to still be at least exposed to some sort of programming before. You should have some Calculus 1 background and the willingness to learn new software and tools. Just for people who are not used to this, installing the software, getting it to run on your specific operating system can be time consuming. We're here to help, but it also means that you need to put some time into it, right? So you first have to try hard before you come to the office hour to say, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so instead of coming to the office hours to say, here's my laptop, can you please do every installation for me? And by the end of half hour, if you're done, I will take my laptop away. I would like you to get your hands dirty to try to get some of those libraries and packages to run on your computer. And also there's some part of skills that you kind of want to build upon, depends on your background. Some of you coming from an engineering background, none of you is a computer science major. You might be in, you might be in bioinformatics. So depending on your background, there is a subset of skill that you might have to build from ground up, but that's okay, we're here to help, right? But don't be scared that you have to learn something from ground up. And if you are unsure about your background, please come to talk to the instructor. Okay. Code of conduct, I do want to spend some time on this, is we want to have a harassment-free and inclusive environment. That's number one, and we do not tolerate any harassment in any form. And if it does happen, please report. And there is all detailed description over there. Also, because there are programming in all throughout the assignment, I do want to mention academic misconduct. The general idea is you are welcome to discuss the course ideas, materials, homework with one another, but the work you turn in must be your own. Or for the project, it has to be yours and your teammates' work. For example, you must write your own code, design your own visualization, and evaluate the results in your own words. You cannot submit the same or similar work to this course that you have submitted or will submit to another course. Okay, so the final project has to be something new that has not been submitted for other coursework. Or you may not provide or make available solutions to homework to individuals who take or may take this course in the future. Okay. The general rule, there's more details. The general rules is that you will fail the class if you are determined to have academic misconduct. The academic misconduct will be reported to your home department in a formal document that they were going to keep it in your record. And we will check for cheating cases among all your submissions. The general rule is that, for example, if you are determined to have academic misconduct, at least from School of Computing's perspective, if you have, so for example, a homework where there is segments of the code that is copied from elsewhere, and we determine that is indeed the case, you will receive what's called academic section. You will get a 0 for that homework. And then if you get 2 sections, it's what's called a strike, which means you automatically fail the course. And if you get 2 strikes, you are not allowed to be a computer science major. So, so there's details in the syllabus, and our goal is make sure that you learn how to write code and how to do data analysis on your own, and learn how to collaborate in the proper manner. Okay, so a lot of other course policies are detailed in the website, which I will go through quickly. And that covers all those topics. I want to mention quickly, there's also regrading policy. If you receive your grade, you can request a regrading within 7 days. Through a formal Canvas submission. Okay. This week, very important, make sure to complete homework 0 before the start of Thursday's class. And if you have not been exposed to Python at all, try to read a bit over Introduction to Programming in Python. And there is some reading materials that's put there, especially for those who is going to be dealing with Python for the first time. And this is homework 0. So this is the interface for homework 0. In fact, this is the time I'm going to go there. I'm going to sign out so you can actually see. Oh. Okay, so this would be the view you are going to see for the repository. When you go to the homework, which is also linked from the website, it says homework 0 and homework 1. And homework 0 is the first thing you want to do, is to make sure you have Python installed and also Conda installed, which help you actually to install the whole package. So there is instructions. What you're going to do to see you are successful. If you type in Python or over your command line, it's going to tell you what exactly the Python version it is. And once you installed using Conda, the IPython, which enables the Jupyter Notebook, you are going to see a screen that looks similar to this in the folder where you have the IPython code. And then this is where you can click on the Python code and be able to run it. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Okay. All right. So that is really homework 0, is to make sure you actually have Python installed. And then, of course, we haven't get to there, but we also already posted homework 1, which is due next week. So if you are a little bit ahead of yourself, you can even start doing a bit of homework 1 as well. Okay. Now, which one's my slides? This one? Oh, yes. Okay. So GitHub. So once we provide the GitHub link to our lectures as well as the homework. So there's a very easy way to get access to your homework each time. So you can just do, once you have the Git installed, you can just do Git clone. Once you clone it, each time you pull it, you will get the latest version. But of course, as we go along, we're going to put more and more homework so you can get the get a copy of the homework that you need. So for next week, so this on Thursday, we're going to cover first introductory course to Python programming. Next week, we're going to cover a second lecture on Python, as well as things like data structure and Panda. And we're going to start touching some descriptive statistics. And then next week is also the first homework is due next Friday. Okay. Right now, if you haven't had a permission code, you haven't registered, there's a link for you to register through the computer science site. But if you want, we'll be around and you can ask us questions regarding registration. So we do have some time for breakout, I guess. But before we do breakout, I want to spend 2 or 3 minutes, just go over the website with some details. So, oh yes, I want to actually show Canvas, what you're going to see. This is the student's view of Canvas. So when you go to the sort of the homepage, what you're going to see, there's a few interesting things here. If you click on important online links and office hours, it's going to give you all the online links as well. What is a Zoom, what is Piazza, and so on and so forth. And it also lists the office hours. And we generally have 1 office hour every day of the weekday. So depending on your schedule, you can choose whichever one to go to. There's also this particular link on how to get help, which is basically general tips of how to succeed in this course. And also, again, information on how to interact with the teaching staff. There's some guidelines over how to ask questions online, especially with respect to Piazza. The general rule is that if you're posting questions to Piazza, you can post questions, concept, high-level strategies, but please do not post solutions to homeworks over Piazza. The other thing I do want to describe is to be respectful in the online presence, that, be careful when you use cap letters, because different people, when you capitalize an entire sentence, different people can interpret it very differently. So be very respectful in the online environment. And the last bit is that when you post some questions, I want to be very straightforward with you that your post may show up as anonymous to the classmates, but the teaching staff will know who posted what. So be very aware of that. Okay, so that is mostly on, and also, of course, you're going to always see on the left hand You are going to see Piazza, which is also linked from here. So if you don't want to remember how to get to your Piazza page, if you don't put it over your directory, you can go access Piazza from here, but also over assignment, this is where you click and submit your assignment. And last bit here is our actual course webpage, which is, where did it go? Right here, right? So the syllabus is actually quite long. I do remember there's a story at the beginning of this month where a faculty put in his syllabus, said that, you know, he hid money somewhere, but nobody took that money. I might do that. So I would like you to read, understand the syllabus, right? So it has all the policies, and it also towards the end, it talks about course project, and which will describe more online behavior and recommendations during COVID-19, and so on. Oh yeah, specifically because of the pandemic, I want to mention that if you have a medical emergency, we do provide extensions, but we do need you to provide documentations to support extension request. Okay. So the places where you're going to access more is things like homepage, syllabus, and also schedule. Schedule is basically a reminder of all the due dates of your homework, as well as a lecture, what is going to be on each lecture. And once we have the YouTube video, we'll also post a link on your YouTube videos where you can access the videos as well. There is description over project, which when the time comes, we will also spend a little bit of time talking about it. So the general idea is for you to try to start earlier to try to form a team of two or three people. And then the idea is to think about a data science problem. And I would encourage you to start thinking about it now of how to formulate a project together. And again, the idea is for you to try to at least 80% of your final project has to be code written by yourself, except for sort of standard library you're going to use. And then there's a list of approved standard library. Okay. If your final project is great, you will be part of the Hall of the Fame, and your project could go here. And also the best project will receive a bag of chocolate. Okay. And of course, resources and so on. So, all right. So should we do a breakout quickly, given that we have a little bit of time?
Ask for questions.
Oh, yes, questions. Go ahead.
So it looks like on the readme, everything is set up for command line. So firstly, using Windows, you want to install it that. Something that allows you to do it.
So most of the homeworks and the lectures is actually over Python notebook, which is enabled through the browser. So maybe there's a little bit of lecture too, where I think the first few minutes of it is a command line Python, but I think the rest of it is over Python notebook. What did you guys do with the Windows users last time?
So that's a great question. I personally haven't used Windows in a long time. So I'm not that sure of the best way to set it up on Windows. But so if you're having trouble, yeah, let us know and we'll work through it together.
So there's several workaways. I know I also haven't used, I used to use Windows. When I used to use Windows and have to install some packages and it's not supported by Windows, I use a virtual machine. That's one way of doing it. But majority of the homework and lectures are Python notebook, so Jupyter Notebook, and that is enabled by browser. So you should be able to install Jupyter Notebook in the standard way and get it to working. The only thing I would want to emphasize is a version of the Python. It has to be 3.9 or something. You can read our things just to make sure they are compatible with your Python default. Does that make sense?
Once you have the right Anaconda installation, I
Yeah,
think that
so-
will be like
Yeah, so
for Mac or for Windows or for whatever you
Yeah.
need.
So-
once you install it for your version, you can just click on open Jupyter Notebooks, and I don't think you'll have to do anything.
yeah. So Anaconda is the one that has multiple platform that is support. So if you click on the Anaconda link, it will have a sort of installation file for both Windows and Mac. So once you install that, you should have no problem doing the Python notebook. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
What do you want us to call you guys, by your first name or by doctor?
I'll let you answer that.
Good question. I got referred all the time by Professor Wang, Professor Phillips, Bay, and so on. Maybe you can call me Professor Phillips, right? So just to be, sometimes I go to the hotel and I'll be like, well, I might be checking under Bay Wang or Bay Phillips. I don't remember which one I used, but anyway, call me Professor Phillips, and maybe Anna, do you want to? Professor Little?
That's fine.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
respond to anything, so.
As long as it's a respectful reference. Okay. Anything else? So we will spend some time, talking about the project. If you look at the schedule, that the project proposal is happens sometime in March. So you have some time to formulate your team, but I would like you to kind of start to get to know your classmates, and you can also post a message on Piazza to say finding teammates. So ideally, you want to formulate a team that is fairly balanced, where you can kind of balance each other's strengths and so on and so forth. And that is actually one of our goals, to have sometimes breakout sessions. So you get to know people in your class and you can form teams together. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll do 5 minutes breakout. Yeah. Okay, so for people who are remote, oh, there's a question. Oh no, that's just this, yes. I'm going to do, so for people who are in the classroom, I would say formulate a group of 4 or 5 people. And then kind of the idea is the following. Get to know each other, questions, right? First year for anyone who's undergrad, who's MS, who's PhD, what area you're coming from, who knows Python, R, MATLAB, C++, Java, other languages, so you get to know what they do, and so on. Okay. For people who are remote, I'm creating breakout rooms of 4 people. Okay. Oh, I think my room is a little bit too big. I tried to do 4 people. Oh, I clicked 4 rooms. I should have clicked in more rooms, but that's okay.
That's okay. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. So
Nice to meet you guys.
It's nice to meet you. Yeah. Take several if you need them.
We'll actually keep going.
It's good to have a backup.
Yeah.
yeah, so I figure we will have some time to also talk in detail about the project, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I forget exactly. So, wait. Yeah, I'm not really not sure how to run the Python in Windows. I mean, but I don't really realize that it's neat to do that. I mean, like on the Mac, like either start the command line or you can start from Anaconda. So with Windows, you just start fine, but there's probably a way to do it on the command line.
Yeah, I really don't. I haven't really run Python from command line on Windows machine for a long time, but they should not have any problem with yeah. So do you want to stay a little bit after the class?
Yeah, especially since we won't be there Thursday. I guess you could log in.
I could log in to check everything works.
In case the stream.
I would do it. Yeah, I would do it. Yeah.
But hopefully we'll figure out what the issue is.
Oh, actually, I'm going to stop streaming.